Hi, welcome to Coffee with a Closer, where we sit down with real estate agents who are doing things at a high level. And today's guest, we're going to be talking about something that is very important in the real estate world, which is affordability. So I would like to welcome Steve Schommer with Adrenaline Homes.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
So tell me, Steve, tell me a little bit about what you do and how you kind of got into this business.
Sure. We started off as a manufactured home retailer, but then evolved into doing both manufactured homes and modular homes, and then continued our evolution to once somebody buys one of those factory-built homes, they still have to place it on somebody's land and do something with it. So we have then become general contractors as well, but we consider ourselves white glove general contractors, meaning we don't get our hands dirty. We just subcontract out everything that we do.
Okay.
And the reason why we've chosen to go that route is because if we subcontract everything out, we could extend our reach further. Instead of just having a crew that will only drive 30 miles away or 40 miles away, we can go much further. So we see ourselves as going from Milwaukee to Madison to Rockford to Chicago area as far as our reach goes. It does become a little bit difficult when you have a larger group of subcontractors. If you're a control freak that I sometimes can be, accused of, you do lose a little bit of control sometimes with all those different personalities of all those different contractors. And so, but if you enter into that thinking that's what your job is to just manage those people and manage those tasks, then you have a different way of going about it. So we've really strived to do that, and we feel that that's been a good choice, and it really helps us to have conversations and say yes to more people by being able to offer all those types of factory built homes in all that different area throughout this southeastern Wisconsin and northern Illinois.
Okay, so right now you do Wisconsin and Illinois, right? Or northern Illinois?
Northern Illinois, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so what is the difference between like a manufactured home and a modular home?
That's a common question, and we often try to describe it in a few different ways. I like to describe that a manufactured home kind of grew out of the mobile home world, where we don't really use that term anymore.
Sure.
But a lot of people will think of a mobile home has that metal frame underneath with the wheels attached and a trailer hitch. And that still exists today, but we call it a manufactured home, and we still make single wides and put them in mobile home communities, or we put them on private land. But if you think of the evolution of that industry then to now going to a double wide manufactured home, and it starts to look a lot more like a house that's been built on site, but it still has the metal frames underneath, it still has the wheels attached, and it still has a hitch attached, and that'll come in and it needs to be backed over a concrete slab, and then a lot of times we'll finish that up with the skirting around it. So in some ways it still has some legacy appearance of a mobile home, if you will. The differences go beyond just the having wheels or no wheels. The building code that it's written to is a national building code standard. The theory is back in the day, those could be pulled anywhere in the country, right? So they needed to have a consistent rules that would extend throughout the country. So it's a federal building code, whereas most all site-built homes are going to be built to the local building code standard, and so that's a different set of books. And so then when the same factories started building modular homes, then they started to build to that local building code standard. And so a lot of times those modular homes built that way will go on a perimeter foundation, a crawl space, or a traditional basement foundation. And there's no metal frame. They'll still come down the highway in the same sort of way, but they'll be on a specialized flatbed trailer, if you will. And when they get to the site, instead of backing onto a slab, a crane will lift up two halves of a house and set it on top of the foundation wall. It extends a little bit beyond that once you start talking about the subtleties between the code of a site-built code, a local building code or a federal building code. But it doesn't matter too much and when it comes right down to buying the house as far as like how it's built, because they're very, very similar. And in reality, if you wanted a manufactured home built to a local building code standard, in theory, you could do that as well. But what we see as some of the larger differences, certainly the cost on a manufactured home, the cost is more affordable for the house coming out of the factory marginally, but then the difference between the concrete work and the excavation is a lot less than a full basement, for example, and the expense of having a crane and setting it that way. But on the flip side of that, we find that the lending is potentially one of those areas that will make the decision for you, so to speak. Because currently, The manufactured home part of if you get a construction loan, which is most of the case with us, we work with customers who are going through a construction loan process,
Right.
and so they will have to have that house appraised, even though the house hasn't been built or delivered. They still need to know that the land plus the house that you've
Right.
designed is going to be worth what they're going to give you a loan for. And so they have to go find comparables, right? And so if you do a manufactured home, you can only compare manufactured homes. And the reality is that we struggle. There's not a lot of manufactured homes put on private land in this area. So they really are limited with the comparables they can find. In some cases, they can't find enough, so they can't hold the value. And we've had deals that have completely blown up because they haven't been able to support the value. In the flip side of that, or in one case, we've taken that exact same floor plan and went back to the factory and said, hey, now we're going to make this as a modular. House was slightly more expensive, but now they could take that and they could find comparables to site-built, stick-built homes, or even homes that have built in the past, years ago.
Okay.
And now because there are so many more homes that you can find comparables to, it's very likely that you're going to be able to support the cost of that house, especially in today's market. So the main difference has evolved into not really so much how the house is made, but how the house is funded. Really is one of the leading factors. And it's not until you get into the point where somebody really needs to be in a manufactured house that we seem to be going down that path. More often than not, we're slipping over to the modular. Now, in this area, growing up, a lot of people will want a basement or have had a basement.
Right.
But the basement really, I don't know, going to roughly say between $40,000 and $60,000 more than what we call a crawl space, which is just walls that extend down below the foundation or the frost line, and then the house is still placed on top of those. But there's no basement, so you don't need a sump pump, you don't need the specialty insulation and those sort of things. So that is the most affordable way for people to get into a house that's a modular home, is to use that crawl space. So we're seeing a lot more houses foregoing the basement and just putting them in crawl spaces.
So to kind of back up a little bit, the difference between maybe like a modular home and maybe just somebody like a builder that would come and just build the house, can you explain a little bit about how that's different and maybe why that's more affordable that way?
Well, the main reason is that the factory built home is designed and built to be scaled in a factory, right?
Okay.
And so
the walls and stuff are being built in a factory and then they are delivered to the site, right?
Yes. Okay. So we consider our house nearly complete halves for the most part. You can do triple wides and quadruple stacks and things like that, but most of the houses we do are two nearly complete sections that are then married together when they get to the site, and then there's additional work that needs to be done. For example, there's no siding on the short ends, right? Because you don't want one big line down where the two pieces came together. So you want the siding to still zigzag and cover the line. So the short ends are done on site after the house arrives. The siding's inside. It comes from the factory, so it's going to be exactly the same as what's on the long side, but you just do that in the field afterwards. Not all the shingles are going to be in place, because the house needs to come together in two pieces. So you need to do the ridge vent and some shingles along the ridge of the house. And then similarly on the inside, you're going to do some drywall and some trim work that maybe frame out a door that might be in the transition phase or something like that. But a lot of that work is done in the factory and it's just finished up when it gets to the site.
What made you choose this line of work?
Well, so my son Ethan and I are in the business now, and we had a business before, and it was in it was in the retail industry. We used to make and manufacture retail displays, and that industry, influenced by Amazon and then COVID, was really starting to see some signs of trouble, if you would, for at least for our business, and we're starting to just try to look into the future and go, that might not be we might not be in this business long because of those contributing factors. And so we initially started to look to supplement what we were doing. And so we thought of becoming real estate investors. And we hadn't built a house before. We weren't contractors, or, it wasn't like I was an electrician and now I wanted to take on a whole house. Yeah. And then we also feared, you hear a lot about the labor shortage in construction, so I didn't want to start a crew and start building houses too. So we were really drawn to the manufactured homes, the factory-built homes. Since in our previous job, we were really brokers, and we were completely used to going to factories and have them make our retail displays. So we really like the business model of having things made in a factory. We really like the speed. Our name was a leftover. Our original company name was Adrenaline POP. When we did that, that was chosen because of the speed of that industry. And when we started looking at this industry, the speed of the factory-built homes was something that we could relate to, and really liked the opportunity to do that and continue what we had learned before to move forward. And so we carried the name forward as well. And so after we did our first house, and it went pretty smoothly, we thought we should find out from the factories how many we could buy from them and flip before in order for us to qualify to have factory direct pricing, if you will.
Okay.
And so when we went to several of the factories and discussed our business model and what we were thinking, they all kind of latched onto the fact that we were located in Kenosha, and there's really a void in this part of Wisconsin and also surrounding northern Illinois where nobody else is really doing it, at least to this level and to this scale. And there might be a few mixed in there, but they of course wanted more, right? So they all convinced us to become initially a manufactured home retailer, and then evolved into doing modulars and then general contracting. And so that's how, and now this part of the business has become so large and so popular that we have really shut down the original business. We've just walked away from that so we could spend full time selling homes. And
you mentioned your son Ethan works with you, right?
Yes, absolutely.
How is that to work with a family business?
Well, for the most part, good, right? Sometimes I think, learn a lot, even on conflict resolution when you have to argue with your son, so to speak, if you will. So I think in general, we've got a very strong relationship, and we learned a lot. I mean, there are days that we don't get a little irritated with one another, but for the most part, we complement each other well. We work hard together. We're kind of made in the same mold, if you will, and so it's worked well for us. It's been a great joy.
We were talking a little bit before the podcast, but you tend to work like 7 days a week sometimes, right?
Yeah, that wasn't the original idea, was to work that often, but yes, that's what's happened lately.
Yeah. Understanding a little bit about your business and how it works, like you build the properties in the warehouse and then deliver them to the land. Sometimes finding the land can be the challenge, no?
Yes, when we first started, we did find a piece of land ourselves, and we put it on there. So we were that land home solution, and we went out and found some land. And that was not in this area though. That was up in central Wisconsin, really. Where we chose to do our first house up there. Now that we're down here, we have thought often of trying to do some of that, but that is a challenge. A lot of the properties that would be a nice property to build on they go fast, or so it's almost a full-time job that you have to keep watching. You have to have your business prepared to move quickly on some of those prime real estate opportunities to put a house on. So and the other part of our business has gotten so time consuming that we're just trying to help people that already have land to put a house on it, that we really haven't been able to take the time to try to do more of that. Gotcha. What we end up doing a little bit is we're entering into a lot more conversations with some of the cities. The city of Racine came to us and said, hey, we're going to have some of these lots become available every spring. They bring in some lots that were in the city that become on their books, and they want to divest them and get them out and get them developed. And so that's some of the more likely opportunities for us to be getting into some land home opportunities, is working with some of the city infill lots. There's a lot of interest from around this area to do whatever it takes to find affordable home solutions out there, and we're becoming more popular and more well known as somebody that can offer that. And so we're more in the last 90 days or so been a lot more involved in some of the conversations with some of the cities in the area.
Are there any roadblocks or things that you would maybe tell somebody to look out for if they are looking to maybe build a manufactured or a modular home?
Well, if you have the land, right, if you already have the land, we want to make sure that you do the due diligence with your local governing body, whether it's the county or the town or the city or whatever. You want to make sure that whatever rules they might have, it can guide you in your choice. For us, we have an offering. We now represent 5 factories, so we can pretty much find a solution from one of those factories that can go pretty much anywhere in this area. But you also have to know what those rules and restrictions are for your own particular area. I mean, I literally start by Googling, who's the governing body by this parcel of land or this address, right? And then I contact them and I'm like, what do I need to know? What are the rules? What kind of house can I build or not build? What's the size of the house that you allow, whether it's a square footage or some cases even a minimum or a maximum height of a house that you can put on there.
Right.
And of course, a lot of times you can find a piece of land, but maybe it's doesn't have the right setbacks or doesn't have the right infrastructure to it. So the list is kind of long, and we are working with our marketing people to maybe do some YouTube university type videos online to help educate some people on what to think about, what questions to ask. And what you find too is that all of the different area that we cover, it seems like every town or village has a different criteria and also a different process for getting approved and everything. And we want you just to be not shy about jumping in and going after it and trying to get all your questions answered. But we're also trying to, I guess that the next step level for us is to try to do almost like a, permitting for dummies or something like that, and try to find out where we can help educate. And in some cases, I would love to get to the point where we could try to convince some of the municipalities in the area to get on the same page and everybody does the same thing, just from the process, because it's like you have to go and investigate and educate what's all required. There also, when we get out and touch different areas, we see how people do things differently, and in some cases, some of them do them well, actually. Lake County, Illinois, as much as they have some super strict requirements, they have an early assistance program where they will give you a letter after you give them the parcel, and you wait a week, you'll get a letter that tells you exactly step by step what you need to do. So I would love to share that with everybody. I'd love to share that with Racine County and Kenosha County and all those other counties, to say, hey, if it would save a lot of headache. It would, especially if you're talking to first-time home buyers who are just overwhelmed with the whole process, right? If there's and I would like to think with little effort, some of these communities could get on board and just like, hey, let's just make it easier, right? Let's, instead of scratching our head going, how do we solve the housing crisis? Maybe just go, let's grab some low-hanging fruit. Let's try to make it easier for the new first-time home buyer to buy a home, because it's gotten complicated.
It is complicated, for sure. I'd like to kind of pivot just a little bit. Now, Coffee for a Closer is kind of helping others see what others are doing at kind of a high level. So do you have any tips or tricks on how you maybe market to the public, or any success habits that you would recommend?
Sure, absolutely. I had already mentioned our old business. Our old business was business to business. We did zero marketing. It was only referrals. We were kind of a niche little entity. And then we flipped over to this, and it's completely opposite, right? So from the very beginning, we started off doing having a completely different attitude towards marketing. We needed to get out there to the business to consumer level. We needed to get out and find out how to reach them. And because also we ended up having a location that's not a drive-by location too. Right. So we needed to be found online, really, is what our attitude was. We had some good models because we do represent these factories, and in some cases they're very large corporations, and they have a really good marketing machine going, and we do benefit from that. We get leads consistently from them. But we also wanted to have a local flair, a local flavor, right? So we wanted to show some of the things we're doing here. We wanted to be relatable. We wanted you to watch a video of us having a house delivered, but then walk in the doors next day and talk to the person you saw in the video, right? And we can know that we're out there to help make sure whatever you need to know to put a house there, that we've talked it through with you and walked it through the step by step and make sure you have everything you need. So we are constantly evolving in our marketing to try to get the stories out there, the education and learning out there, and it works well. We have become a pretty well known name in the area, and after a short time, and we think another year from now it'll probably even blow off the charts from there. But we do a lot of the meta ads. We do just posting and reels and things like that. Social media, yeah, particular social media. We do want to do a lot more podcasting and we have different topics and different guests that we'd love to evolve into eventually. Yeah. We do pretty considerable amount of local networking. We find that to be successful in multiple ways of just working.
That's how we met.
Right, that's how we met. and then we also like to spend spend our own money, if you will, in the network where we've had contractors come in and put surface covering on our floor in our walk-on studio. We've had, we've bought furniture from the local furniture guy from the networking group, things like that. We love to be a part of the group that way. And then also houses, you might be in my network and you already have a nice house that you don't want to move from, right? But you might have a sister, you might have a family member, a friend, or whatever, and you're like, hey, go talk to Steve and Ethan over at Adrenaline. They're great guys. They'll help you out, and so that's our
just getting the word out, right?
Yeah, just getting the word out. So yes, we do a lot of networking that has worked out well for us, and it's sometimes the benefits can be hidden. If you just show up for one or two, sometimes it's hard to really see and quantify. And I know it can be hard to go to the events all the time, especially if you're feeling like you're not getting anything out of it. But we've really tried hard, and we've felt that we've really benefited from those experiences. And we take that beyond, right? So we have our little local groups. We're a member of the Chamber of Commerce for Kenosha and Ramac and Racine, but we're also a member of the Racine Kenosha Builders Association. We go to some real estate investing groups. I'm a veteran, so we're part of the Wisconsin Veteran Chamber of Commerce. We look as far and wide as possible to participate in any of those activities that we can. I've recently joined in on a board of directors with a nonprofit out of Racine that deals with homelessness and getting people up and out of the street, and that has opened some doors to some other people. We've had the executive director from the Shalom Center come over and sit down and talk with us about how we might be able to be part of a solution to impact homelessness, and we've had a lot of government agencies, right, where we go to these housing conferences or things that are trying to address the housing crisis in this area, and we end up meeting people and having conversations. Executive director of Racine County, Ralph, and his treasurer. We were talking about the city of Racine and doing some of those infill lots. That's a result of networking and going out and trying to be seen and trying to participate in those discussions and try to be creative and suggestive and stuff. And I think overall it's working. It still seems like we have a long way to go. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Well, it seems like you're involved in a lot of different things. I'm a big advocate for networking as well. I think, and I agree with you. You can't just show up to a couple events. It's more of kind of what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. Yeah, absolutely. And also, being kind of a member of BNI, those types of groups that givers gain, right? So sometimes you have to give, like going with your nonprofit stuff that you help with. And it's not that you're doing it to get something, but I just think that's the way that the world works. You got to give before you can expect to receive anything.
Yeah, right. I mean, our attitude towards homelessness, because one would think I sell houses, right? So how can somebody who's on the street buy a house? Well, I don't see it that way. I see if somebody can't buy a house, then they're going to rent. And we're in a situation right now where we have an overwhelming amount of renters. So what happens is the price of rent goes up. Right. So now there's somebody who on the low end used to be able to afford rent. Now they can't afford it anymore. Now they're homeless, right? And so that's where I see our role is to try to sell those houses that are affordable. Right. So the people that we can reduce the amount of people renting out there, they can get them in a real house, that they can afford. And that's how I see our mission and the whole thing. But you got to be part of the whole discussion, and you can't just focus on your one slice. Right. Right.
All right. Before we wrap up, I want to hit you with a little lightning round. It's something I didn't prepare you for, but this is just honestly just for fun. So the name of the podcast is Coffee with a Closer. So I always like to ask, what's your coffee drink or what's your go-to drink?
For the most part, I love a sugar-free Caramelicious from Scooters, if I had a choice.
Scooters.
Yep.
Okay.
Ethan and I have grown to have almost like a cult following at Scooters. We wish they would move one closer here. Other than that, it gets boring. It's just like black coffee with some cream and sugar maybe or something like that. But if I'm going to go fluffy, it's got to be the Caramelicious from Scooters.
All right, awesome. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
I'm definitely an early bird, but I also don't sleep a lot.
Okay. Okay. Favorite restaurant here in Kenosha?
And we do like to go out and try different things and get away around. I have not gone to the new Cooper's Hawk in Kenosha, but we used to live in Illinois, 5 years ago, and definitely aware of Cooper's Hawk, and I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful place. We do, in addition to that, boy, I'm going to see if I can come up with a good one. I mean, honestly, we like Mason's. It's relatively close to our house, and it kind of was like just a good solid menu that it doesn't need to be a special thing, but you just want to go out and have a conversation out. And so,
are you a reader at all?
By default, I would say I don't read a lot of books. Even in past jobs, I used to drive a lot, so I used to do a lot of audiobooks, but I have definitely got to the point in my life where I force myself to read now. So I have multiple books on a pile that I need to read.
Anyone that comes to mind that you would definitely recommend to somebody that's in sales?
I did like the Atomic Habits, one that I read a while back. It's just how do you no longer make the choice to do the things. If you can develop it as a habit, you're not choosing to get up and work out. You're not choosing. If it becomes a habit, then you don't have to choose. The whole idea is to make these small changes to your habits to lead to large impact in your life. I thought that was a good one. Still seems like I have a lot more practice in that whole process that I need to do too. But,
yeah, there's always room for improvement, right? In whatever we do. Well, I do appreciate your time today. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, how would they get a hold of you? What would be the best way?
Well, the best way to reach me is you can call me at my office, which is 262-358-5858. You can go to my website, which is adrenalinehomes.com, or you can simply email me at steve@adrenalinehomes.com.
And I'm Michelle Garibay. Thank you for watching Coffee with a Closer. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can reach me at 262-496-4582 or follow me on socials.